Win up to £25,000. The Community Lottery, a subscription-based lottery that allows you to continue to support good causes that matter. When you win, good causes win. Every month, eligible good causes have the opportunity to win a share of funds that could help them continue the good work that they do in our communities. To apply, there's no complicated forms, nor do you have to be a registered charity. Just grab your phone, send us a 60-second video explaining your good cause and the difference having extra funding would make to your project. Visit thecommunitylottery.com. Hit the play button and sign up for either 13 weekly draws or by direct debit for just £4.35 that gives you 4 weekly draws. You could have the chance of winning £25,000. The aim of the Community Lottery is to create an additional source of funding that will enable good causes to undertake innovative projects that matter. If you're in, the communities win.
With songs like Oh my God, cause I felt like I lost my faith. And also featuring 2020 Reggae Star Factor winner LA Gray with songs like That's a Way. Also featuring 2 legendary guest artists, Winston Reedy and Vivian Jones with songs like In the Light, and Strong Enough. Sponsored by DDMC, CB Multimedia, and Media. Making a date and don't be late.
Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of What a Week. We're right here on MediaNet Live TV with myself, Mr. C, and of course, my wonderful co-host, Mr. Tony Crossbody, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening, Mr. C. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Tony. Good evening, good evening. First and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, please remember, wherever you're watching, viewing, please remember to keep on liking, subscribing, and sharing the content, what you see. So, Tony, how you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm good, bro. Feeling better now. The weather's warming up a little bit. We're getting some rain, but you know, it's better than the winter cold that we've been having.
It sure is. It sure is, man. It sure is.
Saying Good evening to Phil. Good evening, Karen James. How you doing? Sharon Spice Gibson. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, all.
Mr. C, what do you think? What's happening with this lockdown situation? When do you think this is going to be? When are we going to have some normality around here?
Well, people are saying around about in another month or so. But Tony, I just don't know anymore. Beginning of last year, I had all these thoughts in my head as regards to when I think this thing would actually be done, be over, we'll be back to some kind of normality. But every time I've tried to second guess this thing, Boris and his people, them always seem to manage to keep me still guessing, Tony. So I'm until the fat lady sings, I'm not saying no more on it. I'll just wait until that moment happens. But
a few weeks ago, we did look at the 4-step lockdown, didn't we, on this show?
We sure did. We sure did.
Saw that by June the 21st, everything would have been lifted. But we're now hearing Boris saying, "Well, we're not working on dates; we're working on data."
Which what can we say? What can we say? That means he's getting ready to turn things around again. I don't even know what to say anymore, Tony. But you know this is the reason why I wait until the gates are finally open, and we get the full all clear, and it needs to be the full all clear for a good steady 3 to 4 months before I'll believe anything what comes out of that man's mouth.
Yeah. Phil says they're gonna let you spend your money for Easter, then use the home tests as an excuse. They weren't done right. New cases and new strains. I wonder, Phil, if there's going to be a Caribbean variant, a Jamaican variant of such, or a Trinidadian variant of the virus.
Well, no, because they like to name all the hurricanes after us, don't they? Hurricane Winifred. And the most deadliest hurricane of them all, Hurricane Caroline. That one is full of hot air, that one.
Man. So, you know, we're living in sort of chaotic times. There's seemingly no direction, no order, and we're just left to sort of make our own way through this whole crisis.
Definitely, Tony. And the thing what's confusing as well is, like, we see that there's been quite a few other European countries who have now suspended their intake of the Pfizer vaccination. That's how I pronounce it. Yeah, Pfizer. That's how I call it. Yeah, the Pfizer vaccination. They suspended taking it because some people have been having reactions to it, which has caused blood clots. Again, but even like when the way how the media was portraying it over here, they were saying it's very, very minute numbers. So it does make you wonder, you know, do some countries value life more than other countries? Or is it that there's different information being had from different countries? So I find it very, very difficult to believe that, you know, more than one country would suspend the vaccination if only a small number was being affected by it. But who knows? We shall wait and see. What's your thoughts?
I think the way the media are playing it seems to me that whenever you have these situations where the vaccine comes up short, it's very much minimized or trivialized by the media. I mean, you would have thought basically that this whole thing with the vaccine, which is supposed to prevent people from receiving or catching the COVID, would be a big thing if there was any sort of delay in administering it through medical reasons. And yet the way it's portrayed in the media, it's very much matter of factly, oh, well, it does more good than harm. You know, the sort of damage it causes is minimal. You know, and you see that, Mr. C, and you start to wonder whether we're getting fair journalism, or is this about pushing something onto the public?
Yeah. You know, this is the thing, Tony. We have to really kind of do a lot of our own kind of research and find out for ourselves. You know, all the questions, all the unanswered questions, which the media is not really giving us. So people, please, whether you're for the vaccination, whether you're against it, consultation with your doctor or your medical advisors as regards to your own personal medical conditions or complications, your family history, and then make a decision which is the best thing for yourself and also for your family as well. Tony, are you frozen? I'm not too sure what's going on here. Oh, you're good? Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I'll just read some of the comments in the...
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Into your body, says Phil. Also, Phil says, for your information, guys, research ethylene oxide, I do believe she's saying, which is research, ladies and gentlemen. I can't stress how important that is. It seems like we've just got a little bit of a technical problem there with keeps cutting out. I'll keep on in the meantime, hoping is Tony's coming back in. Wonderful.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I think we got a little bit of a Wi-Fi issue on my end. Is that okay? Can you hear me now? Hello? Hello? Oh no, what's going on?
One Love Lottery is a new exciting weekly lottery established to help raise funds for our young people aged 17 to 25 and to generate community wealth in the UK. By playing One Love Lottery for just £1 per ticket, you also stand a chance of winning some amazing prizes, including our jackpot of £25,000 each week. Tickets are available from onelovelottery.co.uk or call 0208 183 1832 for more information. Draws are made every Saturday and you can play as many times as you like. Players must be 16 or over and reside in the UK. Please support One Love Lottery today. United we stand, divided we fall. One love.
Hello. Hello. So can you viewers, can you hear me? You can hear me. Okay, so it looks like Mr. C's got a little bit of a problem. Okay. So look, oops. Looks like a technical issue tonight. So bear with us, please. Good evening, Yvonne. Nice to see you. Hyacinth, good evening. Emma Jackson, good evening. Carolyn, good evening. Mr. C, I think, has got some technical problems. I thought it was me, but it's actually him. So we're going to continue until he basically joins us. But yeah, so obviously it's a lot of research that we've got to do when making these decisions, because we're not kind of getting a coherent narrative coming out of the government, and we have this issue with certain countries now banning, or certainly banning the distribution of, I think it's AstraZeneca's vaccine. So again, you know, make your decisions wisely when considering whether you should or should not take a vaccine. That's your personal responsibility. But certainly, you see a lot of holes in the sort of mainstream narrative. So use your own due diligence. So look, we thought that we'd stop doing RIPs, rest in peace, but unfortunately we've got a couple of rest in pieces to talk about this evening. So if we can just have the first, our first slide, please. You probably haven't heard this, or you have heard it. It's very recent. So if we could put the first slide, please. We want to say rest in peace to a famous actor. Mr. C, are you okay?
I'm there, man. I'm here, my brother.
Yeah. So I was just going into
gremlins, my son.
Yeah. I was just going into the fact that you know, we thought we were done with rest in pieces, right? We did.
Oh yeah.
Recently. Who else did we do? We did Uroy recently, and now today we've got not one but two famous black actors. Oh, one famous black actor to talk about. This gentleman, Mr. C. Do you know who he is? Nope. Note down. Can you hear Mr. C? No? Okay. Okay, so let me continue while Mr. C sorts out his technical issues. Yaphet Kotto, ladies and gentlemen. Do you remember Yaphet Kotto? The first time I recall seeing him was he played a character called Kananga in the James Bond movie. Is it You Only? Which one was it now? Live and Let Die. Do you recall Live and Let Die? That's what. That's the first time I sort of came across. Yes, Yaphet Kotto, his name is. Live and Let Die was the first time I saw him on TV, and he was certainly a very menacing character. He played the evil Dr. Kananga. He was the evil baddie in that James Bond film with Roger Moore, and he became even more famous, I believe, in 1979 when he starred in Aliens. What do you call Aliens? That was a pretty big movie. I think I'm not sure if that was his biggest movie, in fact. But he certainly, he was a great actor. And we saw him many times during the 70s in many different TV series. And yeah, we heard. Oh, I got this news today that he passed away, and so we want to send our condolences to the Kotto family. He was mostly playing villain parts, but he played them so well, and you really kind of got into his characters when you saw him on the screen. He really did have a presence. The great Yaphet Kotto. So we want to say rest in peace, sir, and thank you for your contribution to our entertainment, particularly as black people. We certainly enjoyed your movies and the TV series that you made. And we say to your family condolences and rest in peace. So 1939 to 2021, I believe. So that would have been 82 or 81, probably in his 82nd year. But never missed that distinctive look about him. Yeah, he had that face, that character actor face. Let's have a look at the next slide. I think there's a picture of him in that James Bond movie, if I'm not mistaken. Next slide, please. Do we have that? So Mr. Yaphet Kotto, what an actor. Can we have that in the next slide? Management, if you can. Yes, Mr. C, are you right? Can you hear us?
Oh, listen, man. Yeah, listen, man. Gremlins, my brother. Gremlins.
Okay.
You know, Yaphet Kota, I've seen that you've just... Yeah, man. Fantastic actor. Absolutely love this guy, man. You know, obviously you've spoken about James Bond and Aliens.
It said that he actually received an Emmy nomination. Oh yes, for playing Ugandan President Idi Amin in Raid from Entebbe. Yeah, I remember. Do you remember that? That was quite a few years ago, but that was a fantastic role.
Yes, man.
As Idi Amin. Yeah. Phil says, did he do North and South too?
He was such a good actor.
What was North and South? Don't remember that show.
North and South. I don't remember it either.
We're told here.
It must be way before our time, Phil.
Phil, you're showing your age. It says that his TV career also included roles in the A-Team, Law and Order, and he played Lieutenant Al Guadiello in 7 series of the gritty homicide Life on the Street. Yes, of course. Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Life on the Street.
He was one of those guys, Mr. C.
Yeah, Homicide Life on the Street. Yes.
He was so watchable. You couldn't take your eyes off him, actually. Anytime he came into
no way. And with eyes like that, he couldn't take his eyes off us either. He had that presence about him, innit? When he looked at you, mate, you didn't want to. You know what I mean? He was fabulous. You know.
Yeah.
And like for me, you know, watching him in James Bond, I was just like, wow. It's you know, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when that first came. I was still a little boy, and I remember watching that movie. I was frightened out of my mind watching him in that character role as the evil Kananga. So
Kananga.
Yeah, wonderful actor. Yep. See, are you there? No. Looks like we're going to be in and out this evening, ladies and gentlemen. So let's well, as if we didn't have enough with one rest in peace, let us look at another hero who unfortunately died only a few days ago. Next slide, please. If we can just expand that, please, management. Explode that. Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear about the death of the great, marvelous Marvin Hagler? Marvelous Marvin Hagler. The man died at 66, which in this day and age is relatively young for a death. And interestingly, his wife said his death was unexpected. So he didn't seemingly have any illnesses that was to be concerned about. But unfortunately, we got the news a few days ago that he had died. So for those of you who don't know who Marvin Hagler is, well, he was arguably probably one of the best boxers ever. A menacing figure in the middleweight division during the 1980s. He first made his name in this country when he came and challenged the reigning middleweight champion, the British boxer, Alan Minter. So for those of you who are old enough to remember that particular fight, Alan Minter was reputed to have said, "No black man, I'm not going to let no black man beat me." And he got thoroughly whooped in that ring that night. And the British public was so mad about it, they threw bottles and they escort Marvin Hagler away from the ring. Mr. C.
Wembley Arena. Third round. Marvin Hagler busts his side of his back. Just in case there's children watching. And busts his side of his back. By the time Marvin Hagler finished with him, Alan Minter was black and blue.
I don't know if you ever saw it, but there's actually a clip on YouTube of the after dressing room scene where the reporters ask Alan Minter, "Do you think that was a wise thing to say?" Right? Do you think that was a wise thing to say about when you said that I wouldn't allow a black man to beat me? And then here he's got his towel full of blood on his nose. Basically, he sort of said, "Well, it probably wasn't the right thing to say," you know. But that was the first time. That was the first time I personally I'd heard about him, but I've never seen him in action until that time. And that guy just looked like a Terminator.
Listen, Marvin Hagler, I don't think people understand just how great Marvin Hagler was as a boxer. He was an absolute beast, mate. An absolute beast. Fantastic record. I mean, listen, phenomenal. The glory days of boxing, and there will never be, in my opinion, another era of middleweight boxing like the likes of Hagler and his co-speeds. Fantastic, phenomenal. Yes. That's why I can't even watch boxing now, Tony, to be honest with you, because it's more like Strictly Come Dancing. It's like two men holding a hug up and that's what they're doing. They're doing this with each other.
And you know what? Before we talk a little bit about his career, Mr. C, the only thing that concerns me is that there's a little bit of a shadow about his passing, which is not quite clear. As you can see there, the papers came out and basically said that he had died, right? Now, unexpectedly at 66. Now, you're talking about a former boxer here, right? So he dies at 66. Nobody really knows why. No cause of death is given. But I did a little sort of, as I do, snooping around, because obviously he's one of my heroes, and I sort of found this Instagram post. If we can go back to it there, please, management. So if you go on Instagram, what you will find, if we can just have that slide, please.
Management having the same problems that I was having.
Yeah. Looks like good evening, Charming.
Gremlins are out today, man.
Yeah, we got Gremlins messing with the show.
What did the post?
Yeah, so
can you remember what the post read?
I keen to know what was the cause of his death. I went to his Thomas Hearns Instagram. Now we all know Thomas Hearns was a fierce rival of Marvin Hagler back in the day, right? They fought together.
Tommy the Hitman Hearns.
Tommy the Hitman Hearns, right? So I went onto his Instagram page, right? And it's not that one, management. It's the one you put it up already. Instagram. Two slides before this one. Yeah, 2 slides before this one. But anyway, on his Instagram page, right, the one before this one, please. On his Instagram page, Tommy Hearns had a picture, as we're going to see in a second when we see there you go, right?
Thank you.
There's a picture of Marvin Hagler. But if we can expand it, management, so people can see the writing at the bottom. But Tommy Hearns basically says he asked the fans of Marvin Hagler to pray for him. He said he's in ICU fighting the after effects of the vaccine. So apparently, Marvin Hagler took the vaccine, then ended up in ICU, according to Thomas Hearns, that's his friend. And then obviously nothing's heard of until we hear he's dead. Now we don't want to say 2 + 2 = 4 necessarily. But when you consider that when his death was announced, it was said to be unexpected. No cause of death has yet been pronounced.
Yeah.
And this is the second death of a high-profile former sportsman. The first one was a guy called Hank Aaron, who was a baseball legend, who recently had a vaccination. He died shortly afterwards. So now Marvin Hagler's wife comes out and says that he did not die of COVID. Okay. Well, if she says that, we have to accept that. But it somewhat casts a shadow over the great man's demise, Mr. C.
Yeah, it does. I mean, did the Mirror Sport continue and say, give any reason as regards to what Hagler's wife said was the reason for his passing?
No, the article didn't.
See, I find that very strange, It's like, usually I just think human behavior is like, if you said to somebody, oh, you know what, your dog dead from, I don't know, cancer. And somebody would say, no, my dog didn't die of cancer. It actually died of a dumpling. They usually give the reason why.
Right.
But to not say anything is, I still find it highly suspicious to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether, my beliefs, my not my beliefs, I should say, my general gut feeling is that probably people have got to his wife and said, please, you know, don't say blah 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 blah, because there's a lot of hysteria about the people not taking the vaccines and rah rah rah. It's best, you know, can we just keep? We're not too sure exactly how he died or the reasons why. We still need to do another post-mortem, perhaps, you know, these other things to kind of to be more clear as regards to the cause of his death and not lead to any speculation. So probably that's what's happened.
And particularly someone as legendary as he is, who has millions of fans around the world.
Oh yeah,
who grew up on his fights and, you know, admired him as a man. Were they to find out that this was the cause, can you imagine the sort of blowback? And you know, it's interesting that in the United States at the moment, there are counter reports, right, that claim that anti-vaxxers are using Mr. Hagler's death as a reason as to why they shouldn't take the vaccine. So that's how the media are spinning this. So he dies unexpectedly. We have no cause of death. The media says that anti-vaxxers are using this as a reason as to why they shouldn't take the vaccine, but we still don't know the reasons why he died. Now, normally they would say, no, actually, I tell a lie, Mr. C. I read another report that said he died of natural causes. That's
okay, all right, okay. So there's conflicting information out there. Lynn Spencer says death is a personal thing. I think it's up to the family if they want to release the reason why he died. You know, I totally get that. I mean, if I can think of one major celebrity where that was the case, Luther Vandross. When Luther Vandross passed, there was no information given as regards to the cause of his death. A lot of people speculated, but even up to this day, I still never seen or heard the reason why Luther Vandross passed away. And I think that, you know, the family decided that they want him to be remembered for his legacy in music and not for anything else, not to attach a disease or a complication of a bodily function or whatever the cause may have been for his death. They wanted only his music to be remembered. And that was the family's wishes. And I think they did a good job in keeping it that way.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that, and I agree with Lynn Spencer's comment. Although I must add, nobody I personally know who's ever died have I never heard the reasons why they died. You know, so anybody I know who's passed away, we've all, I don't know about you, Mr. C, but I've always known the reasons why, because of course that's one of the first things you ask, right? Especially when somebody is healthy.
Yeah. Well, it does depend, Tony. It depends on whether I like the person, first of all. If I never liked them, I don't really need to know how they're gone. I'm just glad that, you know, ding dong. No, I'm just glad that they're gone.
But anyway, let's move on from that cloud. I'm sure whatever's to come out of that will come out.
As we were saying about legacies, I mean, you know, this is again why, like I mentioned, Luther Vandross. When we think of Luther Vandross, we think of his music. And I think that, you know, when it comes to Marvin Hagler, as you correctly said, Tony, that we should really remember what he did and what he achieved. So where do we start, Tony?
Oh, Mr. C, I mean, you know, a man who held the middleweight crown for 7 years. He was
undefeated.
Undefeated. I mean, apparently in his professional career, he was only knocked down once, right? And I believe that was back in '78, right? In his professional career, has never been knocked out, and has fought some of the most fearsome boxers that the world has ever seen.
Yeah, we mentioned Thomas Hitman Hearns. Also Sugar Ray Leonard. Also Robert Duran as well.
Robert Duran, yep. And he was in a division. You know, they had the top four, right? That was himself, Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Tommy Hearns. They were the top four. But then you had other guys in that division: John Mugabe, Mike McCallum. You had such depth of quality boxers in that era, and there is no doubt about it that this man reigned supreme. Whenever you saw that shining bald head, he used to have a T-shirt that he used to wear with the words "Destroy and Destruction." And I saw a documentary about him, and he said that basically, unlike Sugar Ray Leonard, who was sort of golden boy of American boxing in his era, Hagler had a lot of doors closed on him, and he came up the hard way. He came up the hard way to be recognized, and it took him. I think he had tried to get the WBC, I think it was WBA middleweight championship back in '79, and he lost in a punch decision. And then he got the chance for Alan Minter, and apparently he was told, "Listen, don't leave it to the judges to decide that fight." And we saw how that fight turned out.
100%. If they left it to the judges, it would have been a split decision, and he would have lost it. But
he would have lost it.
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, I do believe you've managed to source a little clip for us, Tony. Which...
Oh, Mr. Steve, I tell you what, this is one of the what has been called one of the greatest rounds in middleweight boxing, if not in boxing complete.
Yeah, the greatest first round ever of all time.
So let's run a couple of minutes on that, just to relive that, Mr. C. This is 1985.
Yeah. Just want to say that if there's any young children watching, it may be advisable for you not to let them see this next bit, because if they start punching up each other, siblings, then we're not responsible. So we're going to show a little clip. It's a full-on proper boxing clip, ladies and gentlemen. So please, if you've got any young children, you don't want them to watch anything like that, now's a good time to either cover their eyes or tell them, come out to the room, big people time.
Let's run that clip, please, management.
Okay, I gave both fighters their instructions in the dressing room. I'm just cautioning you now. Obey my command at all times. Shake hands, good luck to both of you.
As Ray said, Tommy Hearns usually likes to establish dominance for himself up.
The early rounds could really dictate how this fight will go.
The first round is a key round.
We're underway. And the pace is up-tempo right at the opening bell.
Hagler being the aggressor.
Hearns working that jab. He has a very quick jab. There's no denying it. And he caught Hagler with two good jabs and a right hand that might have hurt Hagler. Tremendous pace in the first round.
I expected this, Barry. Both guys are going at it.
Hearns getting the better of it right now. No nonsense at all here. And a left hand by Hagler. What a pace.
You know, both the guys just winging shots, so whoever gets caught in the chin,
there was a
go down.
Left hand by Hagler that stood Hearns straight up, and a right hand. Both men have felt the wrath of the other.
Tommy is hurt. Step back. His legs a little shaky, unsteady.
And a left hand by Hearns. Threw that off his back foot, though. There's a short right.
Hagler now just uses defense. He's walking towards Hearns. He's doing the right thing now. Hearns is on his bicycle. Hagler now is going to his body.
Remember, Roldan caught Marvin Hagler early on also. There's another good straight right hand by Hagler, and another.
Now Hearns is using his movements. He's trying to throw Hagler off balance.
Hearns coming with a right hand lead that time.
Both fighters are really off balance.
Hagler leading with the right hand, but he's kind of lunging with it. There's another right hand, backs Hearns into the ropes.
Watch for Hagler's hook.
Now that was the right hand of Tommy Hearns, and it did catch Hagler, but he didn't take a backward step there. Another good right hand by Hearns.
Hagler working the body now, trying to slow him down. These guys are exerting a great deal of energy, Barry.
Tremendous pace in the first round. Blood coming from the face of Marvin Hagler. Can't tell yet where it's coming from. We'll see.
Both guys will definitely be winded in the next round.
It is over the right eye, I believe, of Marvin Hagler. We'll wait till we get him. And there's a lot of blood early on here. An awful lot of blood on the face of Marvin Hagler. It is in a place where it could do serious damage. We'll know between rounds when we get into the corner. Hagler punishing Hearns now. But it is Hagler who is bleeding. This is still the first round.
The second round, these guys will definitely pace themselves. There has been no boxing at all, just fighting here.
Just slugging. blood on the face of Marvin Hagler. Again, we can't quite tell where it's coming from while Hagler continues to dish out punishment. And now Hearns bounces right back. This may be the most brutal, even round you've ever seen in boxing.
Wow.
And you know what? That fight went on for only 3 rounds. I mean, it's so merciless, Mr. C.
Listen, man. I mean, look,
that pace was so frenetic from the bell.
That 1 round, Tony. I've seen there's more boxing in that 1 round than what I've seen over the last 10, 15 years of boxing, man. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. You know.
Fantastic.
And you know, boxing was definitely his life, his love. And look, even when you think like when he fought Alan Minter, and he held that title for the next 7 years. 7 years.
Yeah. And it's disputed whether he even lost that fight against Sugar Ray Leonard. He lost that on a points decision, but many people thought that he actually won that fight, and he was so disgusted with the result that it basically he basically went into enforced retirement.
Yeah. He didn't fight again after that. That's a man of principle and pride. You know, he went to Italy and started acting.
Acting, that's right. Yeah.
That's when you know when a man's vexed. You know, when a man's vexed is when he puts
goes
down.
To a foreign country. He goes to a foreign country without speaking language.
You go to a foreign country, my brethren, and you're not to that country. They're not really like we're too tough. And you got pick up our next profession, which really and truly is so far from the profession that you was doing before. That's when you know it's in the vexness is deep down. You know what I'm saying? Listen. When you get
and he said in the interview that he was upset for years about that, bro. Listen, you know, he just felt that the boxing industry had done him dirty. You know.
Mm-hmm. It's that kind of vexedness, Tony. Like, you know, like when a girl's dating a man. And you know, for whatever reasons, he leave her and everything, and she's so vexed. She's so vexed that what she does, she now become Christian. That kind of vex, you know what I mean? That one. She's saying, "I don't need no man no more. I'm giving it all up to the Lord," because she's still vexed at that last man.
Adrian Carlos says, Mr. C, that he did beat Leonard. Yeah. I thought it was a good fight. I thought it was close. I thought it could have gone either way personally. That was back when they used to call them super fights. That was Super Fight 87.
And that's exactly what they were. In fact, Leonard actually said in a recent interview, he said that with that fight, he says it was the closest he's ever been to death. So that says a lot, really and truly, you know. But oh man, hold on. Who did I say there was? Is Hagler?
It was Hagler.
Hearns.
Leonard.
Leonard, yeah, Sugar Ray Leonard, Hagler, Hearns. The South American guy. So his name's gone. He's gone. If anybody can remember the South,
you talk about Duran.
Roberto Duran.
Yeah, he's from Panama. Yeah.
Listen, Panama. Listen.
Right. Do you know it's funny? It's Roberto Duran is the person that Mike Tyson emulated.
Ooh.
Yeah. See, a lot of people don't realize what happened. Mike Tyson admired Muhammad Ali, but he saw himself in Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran was a tough scrapper from a very hardcore background, and he was wild. And Mike Tyson said in the interview, when I saw Roberto Duran, I knew that was me. That's who I wanted to be, like him.
No, man.
And that was who Mike Tyson's hero was, Roberto Duran. But you know what I'm saying? I don't know if you or many of the boxing fans remember that fight with Hearns, or as good as it was not as great as the 11-round thriller that he had against a guy called John the Beast Mugabe. Mugabe was reputed to, can you imagine being a boxer being called the Beast in a boxing profession?
Listen,
and Mugabe could take punishment, he could absorb punishment, and it took 11 rounds of both him and Hagler taking a beating before Hagler won that fight?
Yeah, man. Look, Mugabe, mate. I don't know. I wouldn't have fought him. Listen, Mugabe might be around about 70 something now. I still wouldn't fight him. I wouldn't fight that man if he was 95. Mugabe, it'd be like you're giving your best punch, poof, poof, and he'd be like, "Come on, think it. Is that the best you got? Come on, you punch like a pansy. Come on." No, mate.
Oh my goodness.
That's what I'm saying. And back then, there was no ducking fights, man. There's no ducking. I mean, even Sugar Ray kind of ducked but in the end, he had to fight. He had to fight Hagler.
Yeah.
You know, there's none of this fighting these people. Everybody who they fought back then, you knew of that boxer. Like every time I hear of people fighting in boxing now, it's like, who's this next boxer?
Right. Some
15-syllable boxer who I've never heard of before. And when the person gets in the ring, my dustbin man looked more fitter than him. People coming in with 7 bellies, no 6-pack, 7 bellies, and what are you talking about? It's a mockery. It's an absolute mockery. In fact, there's some ladies in this chat right now who could take on some of the top 3 in boxing and probably give them a damn good run for their money and stuff. No offense, ladies, but I'm just saying that this is the mockery of what's happened with this sport now, which was absolutely a beautiful thing to watch back then.
Mr. C, just while you're talking about, have you seen the condition of Tyson Fury at the moment? He's getting ready to fight Anthony Joshua, and oh, dude, like he looks like he's not fighting. he looks like he hasn't got a fight coming up.
Well, there was the other guy who used to do that as well. What's his name? The Scouser, not the Scouser, the Manchester guy. Who would do the same thing if he's not if he's not fighting. He just ate normally. He'd eat junk food.
Oh, you're talking about what's his name? He fought Mayweather, didn't he?
Yes.
What's my boy's name again?
His name. Oh, see, Ricky Hatton. Yeah, Ricky Hatton used to do the same kind of thing. And to be honest with you, that's where you have to question these guys as to how serious are they as regards to this kind of sport, because you don't get footballers that you don't get footballers in this day and age doing that kind of thing.
Right.
I was saying that, and then I remembered a couple of Liverpool football players. There was one, I think it was Jan Molby, who had like...
Jan Molby.
He had the living beer gut and still playing. Razor Ruddock was another one who used to play with a beer gut. And I just, take the sport seriously, man. If you're going to be an athlete, be an athlete. Come on, please. Mr.
C, Antigone Allison says that she's going to fight Anthony Joshua anytime, anywhere. She's got a boxing ring at home.
Antigone Allison, you do realize that you have to wear clothes when you fight AJ.
Watch Phil talk about our tag team. Oh my gosh.
This is terrible.
Sorry, children.
Yeah. It's not the children I'm worried about. It's us, Tony. Putting pictures in my mind that I just can't get out. Oh dear. Poor Anthony. Poor AJ. If AJ's lawyers are watching, we do have the full names of both Antigone Allison and Phil K. Les twins. We have their addresses as well. And me and Tony are willing to give evidence in court.
But let's see, what's the progress with that fight? Has that been signed off? I believe it has, isn't it?
I believe it has. I'm not too sure where it's taking place. Most likely, I would think London. However, I wouldn't be surprised if it's another place in the world.
I did hear Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, well, I think Saudi Arabia is a good bet, because I know that AJ's been doing a lot of training over there. And I'm sure that one of the Saudi royal families will definitely be investing plenty oil money into that particular fight. So yes, Saudi is a good place.
You've got to bear in mind, obviously, the crowd as well. It depends what the situation is going to be like here, whether or not restrictions are going to be lifted. So I think it's more likely to be overseas, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I still think that even though, as you said, Tyson Fury looks out of condition at the moment, I still think that will be a tough fight. I think both fighters will have to be on their A1 game. And even though I'm voting for AJ to win that, I still think he has to be very, very careful with a person with a contender like Tyson Fury. Again, we've seen that Fury could have the living soul punched out of his body, and he will still get up because he has that fighting kind of traveling gypsy spirit within inside of him. I apologize if I've got the right kind of phrase. I'm not too sure whether it's gypsy, whether it's traveler. I think
it's gypsy. He's called a gypsy king, isn't he?
He's called a gypsy king. So yeah, it's very difficult to know what is politically correct nowadays. I understand how white people feel as regards to you coloured folk at home. So, but I think it's going to be a very, very tough fight. And I think whoever takes it more seriously, who puts in the hard work from now and studies the art of boxing and displays a good all-round set of skills on the night, will become victorious. And I'm hoping that will be AJ. Yourself, Tony? Who you voting for?
Yeah, I have my money on him. I think that I think he's still coming into his prime. I think Tyson Fury is in his prime. AJ still got things to learn. So it reminds me a bit. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday. It reminds me of Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson. Where when Lewis was coming into his prime, Tyson left his prime, and we know the way that fight went. So I'm not saying it's exactly the same thing, but Fury is at his peak. And I don't think Joshua is. I think if Joshua loses the first fight, he'd probably take the second fight. That's my feeling.
Yeah. And there's no shame if either of them lose that fight. It's the fight that people want to see, and I think it's got to be done. It's got to be done.
Yeah.
It's got to be done. It's got to be done.
Yeah. So I just want to quickly thank Esha Scoffery and Adrian Carlos for your very kind comments. Mr. C and Tony Crossbody, we really enjoy your show presentation every time. Adrian says
so much.
Thanks for the Black History Studies. He wants to hear more. Sir, your wish is our command. That is what we do on this show. We are here to serve the community. We give you news and views, topical subjects, but we also go back into the history, and we will be doing that in a few moments.
Just want to say as well, folks, one of the things that I've been working on in the background is a charity called Equality is Legacy. The aim of this charity is to raise £5 million within the next year or two to give 200 BAME businesses, of which 75% of these BAME businesses will be Black business startups. Is going to give those 200 business startups £20,000 each, alongside a mentor in business, marketing, and also social media to make sure that that business has the right kind of start and support. The charity will be hosting an all-star celebrity football match, which will take place at Chelsea's home ground, Stamford Bridge, on the 9th of October. Chelsea Football Club have come on board as match sponsors as well, 100% backing this great initiative. And it comes from, as well, Roman Abramovich and also Bruce Buck, who's the chairman of Chelsea Football Club. And I've got to say that I'm really, really, really impressed with Chelsea's support in this. They are not pulling any punches, ladies and gentlemen. I know that there's a lot of stigma attached with Chelsea Football Club and their history of having racist fans and one or two players who are a little bit racy. However, they are totally committed to this project as a club and as an enterprise. And they've given this charity tremendous support. And again, we'd just like to thank them for that. But this is what I need you guys to do over the next coming months, because Stamford Bridge holds 43,000 people. We're going to need that stadium full in order to meet our objectives. So over the next couple of months, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be releasing information as regards to the charity match. There will also be a charity comedy event, an all-star comedy event. Names are not confirmed just yet, but I will let you guys know as soon as they are signed up. You guys will get the first bit of information before even the other tabloids and newspapers do. And also there will be an all-star Bridgerton gala dinner as well the night before the celebrity match. I can confirm for the actual celebrity match, there will be a lovely piece of singing before the game. We're going to bring a little bit of God back into football, ladies and gentlemen. So the Kingdom Choir will be singing a very exclusive song just before kickoff. Confirmed ex-Chelsea player Gianfranco Zola will also be playing alongside other celebrity footballers. I'm not mentioning any names just yet. All right, I'll give you one. Emil Heskey, ex-Liverpool player, is also confirmed. MC Harvey, MC Bushkin, Heartless Crew are confirmed and so solid. But also, I want those of you to know, those of you who've got children over the age of 16 who love football, who play football, your son or your daughter, because we're really trying to create a balance of equality. So your son or your daughter may be able to feature in this football match too, because we're going to give opportunities on both sides, the UK side and the rest of the world side. We're going to have 2 places available for somebody who's a grassroots player and also somebody who's just a fan like yourself. It might be your husband. It might be your brother. It might be your old man. It might be your dad. It might be your partner. It might be your sister. It might be your it doesn't matter if they've got a how can I put it, a love for football and they want to play. They too will get an opportunity to play within this all-star celebrity game taking place at Stamford Bridge on the 9th of October. So you've heard it here first. The charity is called Equality is Legacy. The game is called the All-Star Legacy Match. Look out for it. You'll find out some more information on the website, equalityislegacy.co.uk, or watch for what's happening here, right here on What a Week. Tony, sir.
Wow, no. Let me just say that's a wonderful, wonderful goal. We can only hope that obviously the restrictions are lifted sufficiently to allow such an event to go ahead. Well, that's a great charity work, Mr. C. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what's going on behind the scenes to make that happen.
Bruv, listen, it's consuming so much of my time at the moment, but I've got to say that there's a great team. The founders, Rodney Bennett and Cliff Bogle, are both, brothers who are hardworking men first and foremost in their fields of what they've done. They've never really been given any handouts in life. They've been go-getters, man. And, because of their hard work and their commitment to this, there's an idea which started last year because they were sick and tired of just seeing people protesting without any end product to the protest. Sick and tired of seeing people take the knee without any end product to just taking the knee. What next is always the biggest question for us as a community. How many more of our lives do we have to lose before something actually gets done, and we've seen some great initiatives like Black Pound Day. So this again is another kind of initiative where we're saying this instead of having the likes of Robbie Williams or Comic Relief, these other organizations taking money, sending money to certain place to put water in a well in Africa. We have some fantastic people with some fantastic business ideas here. So let's not support our own community, build our own community, build our own infrastructure, and start building what we know we can always do here if there was equality. And one of the things that we're looking to do with this charity as well is to document the reasons why equality is so important. Document the reasons why that even though, look at us here now. When was the last time we had a black debate show on British television? 22 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. Blouse and skirt, satirical. For me, which was, when you look at it, that's probably what Mock the Week came out of. So, but yet, despite all of these glass ceilings and everything, we've got ourselves here, me and Tony, What a Week. We've got Eddie Nesta, No Joke. We've got our fantastic ladies, the live chat show. We've got Quincy, Extra Time, Friday night. We've got so many other things which we will do as people. And this is what we want to show, is that I've coined this phrase, ladies and gentlemen, and I want us to start using it. It's no matter what happens to us, no matter how many glass ceilings they give us, we will always rise through, around, and beyond, because there is brilliance in our resilience. I love that, man. When that came to me, I was like,
lovely.
The brilliance in our resilience, man. So that's what we want to show. That's what we want to really try and do. And we're going to need everybody's support on this one. So if you've got an inroad to an A-list celebrity, be they black, white, Indian, and you know, it could be your son, who could be a hip-hop grime artist, star, or whatever, get in contact with myself and Tony so that we can try and get them on board. If not for this year, definitely for next year. So we really want to make this big, ladies and gentlemen, and show this country and the world who we really are and what we can do when we come together, and we can create for our own and create long-lasting legacy which will shine through.
Yes, excellent, Mr. C. And let's not forget to remind our viewers that in 2 weeks' time we will be celebrating 1 year of What a Week, where we are inviting 3 female presenters onto the show. And so if you are a female presenter who's never done presenting before and would like to appear on the show, please let either myself or Mr. C know. You'll be taking the show for that particular day. Me and Mr. C will be chilling and watching you guys do a far better job than we could ever do.
Kick back, man.
Kick back, relax, and you guys, 3 ladies, will take the show, talk about the news. Who knows? We might even get you to do some Black history.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's 2 weeks' time. So let us know if you're interested in coming on the show. You'll get all the assistance and help you need. Really, really easy. It'll be easy.
Sharon Spice Gibson says she nominates Antigua and Allison with a big smile on her face.
So get in touch with us, and then we'll take it from there. It's 2 weeks' time for our first anniversary show.
There you go.
Now,
so if you're successful, we'll say your name next week to let you know. And again, this is what we're going to say. Me and Tony are more than equipped, ladies and gentlemen, to support you through this. I know some of you will be like, oh, no, I can't do this. My heart. Don't panic. We have you. We've got you. And what we have to do, we have to, opportunity never sleeps. God forbid something could happen to me and Tony, like BBC may say they want this show. And they'll take Tony because they know if they take me, the ratings. I ain't got no behavior. And then I might need a co-host who understands the format of the show, who's familiar with the format of the show. And so instead of somebody brand new, why not one of you? Or again, Tony may need a co-host because they may find out about my criminal past and eventually I get locked up for the sins that I've done. Tony may need a co-host who is well familiar with the show, and instead of somebody brand new, why not you? So please don't look any further unless you've got somebody who you feel would be perfect, but don't look any further than yourself, is what I'm saying.
This is a show for the viewers, Mr. C. And what would happen if me and you got arrested? We would need 2 new presenters for the show. So come on, ladies, don't be shy. Okay, you can do this. And we're going to have a great time in 2 weeks' time celebrating our first anniversary. So, Mr. C, we've come to that time of the evening now. We're going to do some Black history. But before we get into that, we've got to play a very quick message, and we'll come back with a very exciting and interesting Black history segment. So let's run this message first.
Don't go no further than a cup of tea.
This sounds like women bashing to anyone. What have we been getting for 40 years? What? We've been getting murdered in conversation. We've been getting denigrated, put our feet put to hot coals, publicly, privately, or wherever a woman felt she wanted to express herself. I might be interested in meeting her for a date, and on the date, we might consider whether or not you're long-term relationship material or you're material for the bedroom. That's how we look at you straight.
So when you're saying men are not allowed to speak, my question is why? Why not just speak? Why not use your voice is the most powerful tool you have. Why give it away?
Think of how that same kind of mental abuse, or that how can I put it, that defamation of character continuously for not just 1 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, but for 40 years.
Thank you. So that was a clip from the great After Dark show, which is after this show every Tuesday between the hours of 10 and 12. And me and Mr. C, although we're public enemy #1 on that show, we've been invited back, Mr. C. Imagine that. I don't like those men, but you got to have them back on the show.
I absolutely loved it, mate. I loved it. You know, that's one thing with me. I'm up for any kind of discussion or debate, and you know, especially when it comes to the issues of men and women. You know, I'm not going to run from it. And you know, to have a man like you in the corner, Tony, is it's so refreshing, man. Because so many men nowadays, they're just, oh gosh. As soon as they hear any man and woman talk, they then grab their plate of food and then run, go along, go watch Sky Sports or something. It's just so refreshing to have a man like you in the corner, Tony, who's not just talking off the top of your head. You've got the facts, the figures, you've done the research, you're presenting not just another side of the argument, but it's a balanced discussion as regards to why something has happened. These are the issues and the problems that it's caused. Now, how can we move forward together in unison after we've examined that? And you know, I love that, man. I love that about you, Tony. So yeah, I'm up for it.
Likewise, I appreciate you know, I appreciate the support and you know, expressing yourself the way you did, and so much so that Yvonne, who runs the show, you know, she said to me, "Oh, tell Mr. C I love him." And you two have to be back on the show. So we're back on that show next week, ladies and gentlemen, next Tuesday. We've been called back to talk more about solutions and moving forward. So hopefully you guys will join us again.
Yeah, and men, men, we need you to be watching this program, because you know Tony's putting his whole life on the line for you guys. No, I mean, he's putting it. There's certain places he's no longer allowed to go South London, because there's a South London Ladies Alliance set up to target him. As soon as he crosses the river, yeah, that Tony Crossbody is here. Yeah, now the one on the After Dark running up his mouth and talking about us on the. So we need the men. So ladies, say to your man, I know, so you can't run up your mouth inside my house and everything. However, there's a show on next week, yeah, called it After Dark, where you can watch that freely and secretly type what you want to type and everything. I'm not going to say nothing to you. So we need the guys to watch. Most importantly, we need the ladies to listen. So please, 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 next week, between 10 and 12, After Dark, right here, Medianet Live TV.
Okay, Mr. C, so let's get into the Black history.
Let's, man.
So this week I want to talk about something very interesting, and I think a lot of you believers and churchgoers will find this fascinating, because, of course, many of us have grown up, you know, maybe not, some of us in the church, some of us, our parents were kind of religious, and then we went to church for a time, and then we decided to drop that and move on. And we have been pretty much indoctrinated with regard to what we've been taught with regard to the Bible and who are the characters in the Bible, and specifically where Black people are concerned. Now, if you've been watching this show for any period of time, you should now know who Black people are, who the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade are, their real identity. If you don't, then I encourage you to go back into YouTube, our YouTube page, MediaNet Live, and look at some of the Black history studies where we go into great detail into identifying who Black people are today. But Mr. C, I thought I'd take the opportunity for some of us who probably, you know, we may go to church every now and then, or we have some form of religious background. I want to show people the blackness of the Bible today.
Oh gosh, oh Tony, you're gonna make some
I want to
people
talk about
question
the
their faith.
blackness of the Bible, because many of you will know that during a period of time called the Renaissance, okay, which is around about the Middle Ages, there were many statues and paintings made of Bible stories. And of course, many of these characters that were painted and drawn were white characters. And so you've grown up in a system where whenever you see a religious icon, it's always white. So nobody asks any questions. You go to your church and you worship your God, right? And we'll leave it at that. But let's have a look, using the Bible as our main text, to find the blackness in the Bible. And the first thing we're going to do, we're going to start from the very beginning, and the beginning when man was created. So if we can put up the first slide, and Mr. C, if you'll read this for me, and then we can take our discussion from there.
Okay, so I'm reading from Genesis chapter 1, verse 7.
Yeah.
And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul.
Thank you very much. So here we see the creation of man. Now, nothing particularly extraordinary about that, except of course, you've got to look at this expression, dust of the ground. This is the compounds that God used to create a man. Now, bear something in mind. I mean, common sense tells you that the compounds that God used also has a color. Also, if you look at the original Hebrew of the word dust, you will also find the word mud or clay. Next slide. So if you were to do a Google search of clay, if we can expand that a bit, please, management. This is what you'd see. What color is clay, Mr. C, according to these pictures that we're seeing?
Well, I'm seeing a kind of an orangey brown, to be honest with you.
Right. Orangey brown.
You're not going to tell me that Donald Trump is the descendant of Adam, are you? I'm not ready for that kind of news just yet, Tony.
Not quite. But what we certainly do know, using common sense, of course, is that the characters that are normally depicted as Adam and Eve are not the characters that we normally see. Next slide. This will be closer in terms of color of the first man and woman, since man was taken out of the dust of the ground or the clay of the ground, and would have also had the color of clay. It's not rocket science. Everything that we know about Adam and Eve is nothing more than indoctrination. Next slide. Next slide. If we can expand that, please. Recently, or a few years ago, Mr. C, guess what? They found the Garden of Eden.
Wow.
Where is it? Where did they find it?
It says Botswana.
Botswana. If you look at the actual description of where the Garden of Eden was actually located, it does actually tell you that it was surrounded by at least 2 rivers, but close to 4 rivers. And the description, according to anthropologists, takes us into Africa. Next slide. Anthropologists also realize that out of Africa came this great human migration. So we go back to this thought, that the idea that the original man was created on the continent, and then as they multiplied, they spread out and moved out of the continent to the other continents of the world, as we previously discussed, Mr. C. So the first man and woman made out of clay were a dark color, and they were created on the African continent. And this is backed up by anthropology. Now, a couple of thousand years after, according to Bible history, there was something called a flood, a great flood? Next slide.
Noah.
So in the Bible, we are told that the earth became so wicked during the days of Noah that God had decided to destroy it by using a great flood. And only Noah, his 3 sons, Noah and his wife, his 3 sons and their wives, as well as a select group of animals, actually survived this cataclysmic event. Excuse me. So again, we have these anthropologists and these scientists who say that this event actually took place, as the Bible says. Now, what's interesting about this, why do I bring this up? It's because it's when Noah and his sons get out of the ark that you're going to start to see a list of all the nations of the world, where they come from and who they actually are, right? Because of course, if God had wiped out the nations of the world and only Noah and his sons were left, that means that out of those 3 sons came all the nations that we know today. And so we can actually deduce from the sons and the genealogy that's in the Bible what these people looked like. So some people say, Mr. C, oh, well, the Bible's not about race. Okay, that's true. That statement is true, but the context is lost. You see, because it has been about race for at least 1,700 years, because we've believed that all the characters in the Bible are white. So why do people say it's not about race when it's always been about race? You see, they've made it about race. And I'm saying that even black people are making this argument, right? They're saying, well, God doesn't care about race. He doesn't judge you based upon the color of your skin. Yes, that is correct. That is true.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why they say that is because for so many years it's been used as, you know, we're catching hell here on earth and heaven is the only place where we're going to get equality.
Right.
So we're like, hey, don't mess this up for me now. I've worked a long time for this. My great-great-grandfather worked a long time for this. He picked cotton or whatever, blah, 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 blah. We've gone through all of this. This is my little reward. Don't mess this up for me now. Don't mess with my belief system now. Because if you mean to say that I could have been fighting this a long time ago, so it's going to test your belief system, people. You know, in life, in order to move forward and have clarity, you have to test your belief system, man. You have to challenge your belief system. And sometimes you have to knock those legs underneath which you stand on and rebuild yourself based on the new evidence and the new facts, and create a new you with a new belief on solid evidence and facts.
Right. Unless if we're all honest, when it comes to the Bible, most of us haven't had an opportunity to read it. Most of the time, what we know about it is what we've been told about it. We've either heard a priest, a pastor, an elder tell us what it says, and we've not had the due diligence to actually check it for ourselves. But we're going to show you something here.
Yeah, it's so true, man. I had a conversation with one of my friends the other day who even they got Moses and Noah mixed up, and this is somebody who goes to church all the time.
Right. So let's pull up the next slide. I'm going to read this, Mr. C, because I want to pick up some very interesting points. Now, we pick up the account here. The flood has already occurred. Noah and his 3 sons come out of the ark, and now the Bible is telling us who these sons are, and who their children are, and what these nations are that came from their children. So it starts off in Genesis chapter 10, which is a very famous chapter in the Bible, and is often used, believe it or not, by secular historians. They use this as a means of working out which nations are where, because this is one of the oldest documented evidences of the origin of nations. So let me start. In verse 1, it says, these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. So that's pretty straightforward. You have the 3 sons, they have 3 children. Now we're going to concentrate on one of the sons because he plays a very important part in this biblical history. His name is Ham. If you go right down to the bottom, if we can just scroll up, please, management, so people can see the very last verse in Genesis chapter 10. Mr. C, would you read that? It's about the sons of Ham.
And the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan.
Thank you very much. So notice, Mr. C, Ham has 4 sons. One's called Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Now, that might not mean much to some of you, but let's have a look at a map and see where these particular sons, these 4 sons, spread out to. Next slide. So if we look at the continent of Africa, okay, at the top, or basically sort of as, about 1 o'clock,
northeast,
1 o'clock on the African continent, you'll see Put, right? That's ancient Libya, right? Then you'll see at the bottom of that, say about 3 o'clock, is Cush, which is what we now know today as the Ethiopia region. In between that is a place called Mizraim, and we'll get to that in a second. Now, the reason we're talking about Africa and we're talking about Ham is because all biblical commentators, without a shadow of a doubt, say that Ham is the father of all black peoples. Dark-skinned, melanated peoples come from Ham, the son of Noah. Okay? So let's go back. Let's go to the next slide. Let me just look at this verse again that we just looked at a second ago. Next slide. So the sons of Ham are Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Now, Mr. C, there's this very strange name here called Mizraim. It is actually a Hebrew name. But let's look at the next slide to find out what Hebrew name that is for. So Mizraim is actually another name. Next slide.
Moses.
Mr. C, would you read that?
Okay. So Mizraim is the Hebrew and Aramaic name of the land of Egypt. Woo! I love you, mate. With the dual suffix ayim, perhaps referring to the 2 Egypts, Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Mizraim is the dual form of Matzor, meaning a mound or fortress, the name of people descended from Ham.
Okay, so here we have Noah's son is called Ham, and Ham has a son called Mizraim or Egypt. So Egypt is the grandson of Noah. Question: if it is universally accepted that Ham is black, what color would his son Egypt or Mizraim be?
Black as well, mate.
Right. And if out of Mizraim or Egypt a nation came out of him, what color would that nation be?
I'd have to be black.
But of course, the European historians tell you something else, right? They give you another story. Next slide. So let's go back to our map. Look at the continent of Africa. So what you're seeing, if you look at, on the continent of Africa, if you look at the 1 o'clock on the map, it's Put, which is Libya, Mizraim, which is Egypt, and Cush, which is Nubia, Ethiopia, that region. So you have out of Ham, father of black people of Africa, you have 3 major black nations. So the ancient Libyans in the Bible are black, the ancient Egyptians are black, and of course we all know that the Cushites were also black. Next slide. Of course, as new evidence starts to come out, the European historians are forced to backtrack, right? And but they still won't acknowledge that Egypt is a black nation. What they tell you is that partway through the Egyptian empire, black pharaohs arose, right? So in other words, what they're saying is there were some white pharaohs, but there was a period of time in Egypt where they actually had black pharaohs, and then it went back to white again. This is what they're trying to say. So they backtrack because evidence is now starting to come out that, hold on, these people were black people. So they're now saying, well, yeah, there were some black pharaohs, but Egypt on the whole was either a white or, as they say, olive-skinned nation. But that can't be true because they came from Ham. Ham is universally recognized as the father of all black Africans.
Brilliant, Tony. Absolutely
Next
brilliant.
slide. So the Egyptians would have been more like this in appearance. And that would pretty much have been all the dynasties. Next slide. Let's see how they represent themselves in their art.
It's the same color as the mud.
Same color as the mud. Next slide. So the sons of Ham, Cush, Egypt, Put, which is Libya, and notice, Mr. C, Canaan. We're going to come to that because this is a very important character in as far as biblical understanding is concerned. Next slide.
I noticed you left that one out.
Right. So there's our map again. Okay. So Ham, this is the sons. We haven't spoken about the other two sons yet. We're going to get to them, but we're just discussing Ham at the moment and his importance and the importance of recognizing that Egypt is and has always been a black nation coming from Ham. Next slide. Now, one of Ham's sons, so you had Noah, then you had Ham, and Ham had a son called Canaan, right? Canaan had a land that was eventually going to be taken over by the Israelites. It was called the land of Canaan. The Canaanites, who were sons of Ham, the father of all black Africans, was what color, Mr. C?
Black.
He was black. So if you follow the genealogy of the Bible in Genesis chapter 10, you're going to get to see all the black nations that existed in ancient times. So there is no confusion. So people are right when they say the Bible is not about race. That is true, but it is about genealogy. And through genealogy, you can work out who the people were and what they looked like.
So Tony, what about those people who say, well, look, obviously what it was, the black guy, when they went into these lands, they found Caucasian partners, and then therefore that lightened the genealogy pool, and therefore that's why we've got that reflection of what we've got in Egypt now.
Well, that would have been true, but only as late as the sort of 15th, 16th century of our common era. Right. Because you see that there is this presumption, you see, that all the Greeks and the Romans were white. But as we're going to see when we're doing this history study, nothing is what it seems, Mr. C.
Oh, I can believe that, Tony. I can
Nothing
believe
is
that.
what it seems. So these are merely presumptions based upon an indoctrination that we have received since we were children. So as we get to go through these studies, we're going to look at the ancient peoples, look at who their forefathers were. We'll get an idea of what they originally looked like, and then we can see in history how the colors were lightened through various invasions. But for now, I just want to concentrate on these sons of Ham and the territories that they ran on the continent of Africa and even up into what we now know today as Israel, which was called the land of Canaan. Canaan was the son of Ham, the father of all black Africans. Excuse me. Next slide. Now I'm going to do a quick reading on this one, Mr. C, because there's something I want to pull out here. If we can just expand it to the bottom, at the bottom of that verse, 1 Chronicles 16, where the last verse there, it says, God made an eternal promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when he said, I will give you the land of Canaan. So black Canaanites inhabited the land before the Israelites moved in. Canaan, the son of Ham, who's the father of all black Africans. That is where Israel currently sits. What used to be the land of Canaan until God had them thrown out because of their wickedness, and the Israelites then inhabited that land. Next slide. Again, so this is Genesis chapter 10, Mr. C, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason why I've pulled this up is because I want to demonstrate that there are other nations that came from the same Ham, who is the father, universally acknowledged as the father of all black Africans, right? If we look down, for example, let's pull up the verse. Okay, where it starts off, it says Cush, right? So if we can just explode that. Can you read that, Mr. Cush?
Yeah, Cush was the ancestor of of Nimrod. Is that right? Yeah. Cush was also the ancestor of Nimrod, a mighty warrior whose strength came from the Lord. This is why people say you hunt like Nimrod with the strength of the Lord. Mm. Nimrod first ruled Babylon. Erech.
Stop. So remember, Cush is a son of Ham, right? Cush is a son of Ham. Ham is the father of all black Africans. So Cush is what color, Mr. C?
Black.
Black. Cush has a son. His name is Nimrod, right? What was the city that Nimrod ruled over?
Babylon.
Babylon. The same Nimrod, if you read down, went to build Assyria and built the great city of Nineveh. So the ancient Babylonians, the ancient Ninevites were black people. Mm. Look at the last verse. Read that first, Mr. C, where it starts off with Egypt.
Egypt was the ancestor of Ludim, Ananim, Lebam, Lehabim, Nephtuhim, Paphrazim, Casluhim, and Caphtorim, the ancestor of Philistines.
So remember, Ham is the father of all black Africans. Egypt, or Misraim, is his son. And out of Egypt came the Philistines. So Ham is the father of all black Africans. Egypt is black, and his ancestors are, Mr. C.
Yeah, plenty. Black.
Let's have a look at the next slide. This is very interesting. We've seen this before, but it bears watching again. Next slide.
Early archaeologists came to the study of ancient Egypt and ancient Nubia from the perspective of Semitic languages or the study of the Hebrew Bible. And it was very important to them to bring Egypt specifically into the sphere of biblical studies. And so they had to carve Egypt away from Africa to bring it into that sphere. And the way that they did that was they used race. So these early archaeologists effectively made ancient Egypt white in the sense that they made it part of a dominant Western culture, and ancient Nubia was separated from that. It was black. And this was how they took Egypt out of Africa and put it into this Semitic sphere, this biblical sphere. And it's only in recent decades, the last 3-4 decades, that Egyptology has really moved away from that. And scholars who are studying.
So notice, Mr. C, she points out that there was a definite agenda very early on when the archaeologists went to Egypt to ensure that any trace of blackness was removed from the great empire of Egypt and bolted on to what was known as Western civilization. And they went through great lengths to do that.
Yeah.
But by using the Bible, which those archaeologists claim to use, but clearly didn't read it correctly, Egypt has always been, from its very early inception, a black civilization. In fact, even to this day, you have there's a guy there who's responsible for all the antiquities of Egypt, and he denies that Egypt was ever black. Right?
Oh yeah. I've been to Egypt, Tony, and you'll be surprised how many of them actually say that. You'll be really surprised.
These people, people have a strange. You know what, Mr. C? People think, right, that the appearance of people around the world is the same as it was thousands of years ago.
Yes, yeah, my brother. Listen, it's the same with like Brazil. I mean, again, these things have been hidden from us, Tony, and that's why it's great to have somebody like you who can take us beyond the white shed or the white wipe over, as I like to call it. And when I heard probably in the last 4 years about Brazil, it blew my mind, because never in the whole of my years did I ever think of Brazil being the place where more Africans are than Africa, or the fact that the way how Brazil looks now was not like how Brazil looked many centuries ago. Yeah. And that it was, systematically changed because of the numbers. And again, they've used religion in a way to kind of create this shifting class, and there's so many other things which have been happening. So yeah, it's what can we say, bro? It's real, and it's good that somebody like yourself is highlighting this and making people understand about this, and giving us the real knowledge, the real truth, and the real history.
I mean, the thing, Mr. C, is I would be accused, as I have been when I try to tell people this, of being racist, right? Or of being Afrocentric. You're trying to rewrite biblical history to put a black spin on it. But the fact of the matter is, we're not interested in spins on this show.
That's right.
When you're dealing with biblical history, and when you're dealing with history, generally, what you've got to have is honesty, which is what the European historians do not have.
Well, you know what? It's not just the European historians, Tony. It's people in general. Again, it's about this whole belief thing. It's like I remember when I first found out about the Sabbath, for example. I found it very, very difficult to accept that Saturday is the real Sabbath and not Sunday. I found it difficult. To me, it was like, you're talking nonsense. Everybody, the whole world goes to church on Sunday, so it's Sunday. And then it was like, when I started doing the research myself, and I was like, man. And then it's just simple things like, out of all the commandments, God only says remember once in all of the commandments. And the only time you tell somebody to remember something is because they're going to forget it. And I was like, this shit makes sense to me now. But I still had to go through a journey of changing my belief system to accept it. And I think when we're talking about something like this, where you, from a child, you've been taught that certain characters in the Bible are white, certain heroes, that your creator is the same color as you if you're Caucasian, only to find out in your latter days that it's like people children who turn into adults and then later on find out that their father is not their father. It's difficult to accept.
Yeah. And that's what indoctrination does. That, you see, even after you hear this, three weeks, a month later, indoctrination will make you revert back to your original understanding, what you originally believed. Yeah. And that's why indoctrination takes time to override. And it's very difficult, particularly for church folk, even black church people who go to church and are taught the Bible from a white perspective, right? Struggle to accept what we're talking about here, because they simply feel that oh, well, because you're black people and you don't have no history, you're trying to cling on to everything you find. But if you go through this methodically and use common sense, you can't fail to see the blackness of the Bible. And it's not a question of it's trying to preach race to you, but it goes into great detail about genealogies, who these people were, their forefathers, and you can work it out. So let's pull up this next slide. I want to show you here something about Egypt again. So we talked about how Egypt is the son of Ham, right? And if you look at this map now, look to the right. You're going to see another son of Noah called Shem, and we discussed the area in which he inhabits would have been Arabia. Remember, last couple of weeks we've been talking about Arabia, haven't we? Particularly with regard to the Moors. You remember the Muslims. So Shem, who is one of the sons of Noah, their descendants inhabited that area. And then you have the third son, Japheth, who inhabited Europe. Well, we're going to see more about them perhaps next week, because we're not going to have time to go into those studies in depth. But today I want to concentrate on Ham, because this is a linchpin in understanding Bible history. When you understand who Ham is and his descendants, then understanding what the peoples of the Bible look like become very, very easy. Next slide. Now, Mr. C, you remember the story of Joseph. Joseph was the son of Jacob. He was sold into slavery by his brothers into Egypt, right? Where he was imprisoned for 13 years on a false charge of rape. After being released from prison for being able to decipher the Pharaoh's dream, the Pharaoh of Egypt promotes Joseph and makes him governor. Okay, so let's bear this in mind. Joseph is a Hebrew. He's in Egypt, just come out of prison, and he's now governor of Egypt. Now, let's pick up the account at the last paragraph there, Mr. C, where it starts with since Joseph.
Since Joseph was governor of Egypt and in charge of selling grain, his brothers came to him and bowed with their faces to the ground. They did not recognize Joseph, but at once he knew who they were. Though he pretended not to know, instead he spoke harshly and asked, "Where do you come from?"
Thank you. So notice, he's governor of Egypt. He hasn't seen his brothers for 13 years. These brothers were the ones that sold him into slavery. He becomes governor of Egypt. His brothers have to go to Egypt because they have a famine in their land and they want to buy food. But the interesting thing is, Mr. C, they go to Egypt, a black country, with Joseph as the governor, and miraculously, Mr. C, they don't recognize their own brother.
Well, 30 years is a long time, man. 30 years is a long time. But I think the significant thing in this is to say that at the end of the day, that the color of those who were Hebrew and the colors of those who were Egyptians were the same.
That's the point.
Otherwise they would say, but hold on, this black man here, it would look strange, wouldn't it?
That's the point. If the Hebrews were white and Egypt is a black land, and his brothers, who also would have been white in a black land, came to him and saw that he was probably the only white man there ruling as governor, they would have recognized him quickly.
Yeah. And so it is with the story of Moses as well, to be honest with you.
There you go. We're gonna get to
Moses could never have got into the palace and lived like that if it's like, look, they don't even want to accept Meghan in Buckingham Palace, never mind.
Right.
Or Archie. Look at little Archie. Archie.
Right. In the history of empire, where have you ever seen it that the rulers are a different color to the subjects? You never see that. So the reason why Joseph's brothers did not recognize him is because Egypt was a black country. Joseph was black and no doubt dressed in Egyptian garments with the eye thing and whatever, and they couldn't pick him out. Because the Hebrews were also black.
Yeah.
That's the point. Let's look at the next slide.
Wash hands. Thank you, Sandra.
So again, back into the Bible, we're looking at the story. You mentioned it, Mr. C. You must have read my mind.
Sorry,
about Moses. So read that paragraph there where it starts off at that time. Read that paragraph.
At that time, Moses was born, and he was no ordinary child. For 3 months, he was cared for by his family. When he was placed outside, Pharaoh's daughter took him. Pharaoh's daughter took him and brought him up as her own son. Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptian and was powerful in speech and action.
Thank you. So let's follow the logic. Noah has a son called Ham. Ham is universally acknowledged as the father of all black Africans. One of Ham's sons is named Egypt or Mizraim. Egypt is what color, Mr. C?
Black.
So we have a black nation. Then we have a Hebrew who was taken in by a black daughter of Pharaoh. She brought him up as her own son. What are the chances that this child was white?
Very little, mate. Very little. You know.
In fact, Moses grew up in the royal household. He was educated and turned out to be a very, very powerful figure up until the time when he left Egypt. So we see black, 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 black. You follow it through. It doesn't say black. There's no line saying he was a black man. But if you follow the genealogy through using common sense, you cannot fail to notice the blackness of the Bible. Next slide.
But you see, that this is where they'll throw out some ridiculous arguments saying that because Angela Jolie played Pharaoh's daughter, then probably that's why she adopted black children. Some nonsense.
But that's what indoctrination does. It triggers you off, doesn't it? It triggers you. You'll find any excuse but not to accept. Ridiculous. Especially when you've been trained to think like that all your life, or you have prejudices against black people. The idea that you're going to accept that the great empire of Egypt was black, the characters of the Bible were black, becomes very, very difficult. So let's pick up the account of Moses here again, Mr. C. Let's read that whole point there and let's see what happens.
Although Moses was the most humble person in all the world, Miriam and Aaron started complaining. Moses had no right to marry that woman from Ethiopia. Who does he think he is? The Lord has spoken to us, not just to him.
So here we have Moses goes up in the royal household of Egypt, which is black. Egypt is a son of Ham, the father of all black Africans. And here we have Moses married to what woman, Mr. C? Where's she from?
A woman of Ethiopia, from Ethiopia.
A Cushite woman. Notice, you see, what happens, you see, with those people who say that they are the original people, they never talk about this account.
It's true.
They never talk about who Moses was married to. Moses was married to an Ethiopian woman.
You sure he wasn't a European backpacker on a gap year, though?
Next slide. So when we talk about Moses, we're not talking about Charlton Heston. There is no proof that there's any white people, Caucasian people, within the early history of mankind from the beginning. And the early civilizations that the Bible speaks about were predominantly black. All of them. Now, which makes it very interesting, Mr. C, because when you read the story of the Israelites, we know that they were enslaved in Egypt. So black Egyptians had black Hebrews enslaved. So that's how that spins it all now, you see? Black Egyptians had black Hebrews enslaved until God brought signs and wonders upon the Egyptians, and then they had to let the Hebrews go. But it was black Egyptians that had the Hebrews in slavery. So, Genesis chapter 10 is the linchpin that ties in race. The reality is there is no such thing as race. It is a construct. But for the purposes of this discussion, because race is such a major feature of our world, and race has been used as a means of wiping black contribution from history, it is important that we go back and use the very foundation documents to show what blackness really is within the pages of the Bible.
And not only that, Tony, it was put there as a prophecy and as a roadmap back to who we are. And it was done for a reason. When you think about it, you know, everything in the Bible, and again, those of you who are non-believers or whatever, again, as a reference to a story, the reason why the detail is there is to show people the path, ladies and gentlemen, and it's as simple as that. It's done by design. It's done so that it can never be taken away. It can never be forgotten. And it's there as always as a reference point for the same facts what Tony has brought up today. You know, you can't fault it. You can't fault it because it's so accurate. Let's
look at the next slide. So again, this is how the Egyptians depicted themselves. They know what they look like. They also know what the Hebrews look like. We now know what the Canaanites look like, the ancient Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Philistines, just by looking at one son of Noah. And this is how we get to deduce how people looked. We don't have to see scriptures like he was black, he was white. No. We know what scholars say universally about particular characters. We know they're right, and we can work it from there. We know what continent these people were created in, and we know what empires were in these continents. So from there, all you got to do is work it backwards. And you'll get to understand who the original people of the Bible were, what color were they, and this has all sorts of implications, Mr. C, as we will discuss next week, because we're coming to the end of this particular study. But next week, we're going to show how this has implications for anybody who believes that they're a Christian or a believer and say they have the truth or know the truth. If you do not understand this, you actually have nothing at all. This
Deep.
Is the foundation of truth.
Deep.
Next slide. So if you want to further your research on this particular subject, I would recommend this book, Babylon to Timbuktu. It's available on Amazon. I think some of you actually sort of picked it up already. It's a very, very good read. It certainly will enlighten you, will enlighten your children. I encourage you to get this book. Replay this show again if you didn't understand anything I said. Show it to your children. This is so, so important because the Bible is a history book. There's a reason why it is so controversial. There's a reason why a lot of people go to it, quote it, use it. But what many don't do is demonstrate who these people actually were. And hopefully tonight we've gone part way to that. We're going to do a part 2 next week. Hope you'll be able to join us. And thank you for your attention.
Excellent, Tony, man. Excellent. Connecting the dots there, man. Absolutely. And you know what, Tony, I've got to say that, you know, each week you're such an inspiration, my brother. You know, you bring a little bit something different every week, and you know you even caused me to go and do a little bit of research in areas myself. And what I found was that, I forgot which queen it was now. It might have been Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth I, obviously another swarthy woman. But what I realized as well, Tony, that a lot of the royals and that kind of aristocrats in that time, reason why some of them looked white is because their skin was terrible. So they used to cake themselves with this white chalk, almost like this is, I suppose, where foundation has come from, to make themselves look a certain way. So Elizabeth I, she didn't like how she looked at all. So she always caked her face with this white makeup to cover the blemishes on her face. And that's why people think that she was a white woman.
Right. Right.
But she was actually, Elizabeth I was actually Swarthy. And again, this is another one. Nobody talks about Queen Elizabeth I being Swarthy. You know,
so I think the point you see that I want to get people thinking about. I want to make people, black people, understand that the Bible is actually your book. It's your family history book. You gotta pick it up again and read it again with a black perspective in mind. Next week I'm going to show you how there are very few, if any, white people in the Bible. And we're going to look at all the research and look what scholars say, and we're going to look at the text and follow it historically. So people pick it up again. Pick it up again. For the first time, you were indoctrinated. Now you're getting to understand that actually, when you open that book, you're actually looking at yourself. That's your ancestors.
Deep, man. Deep. So listen, Tony, once more, thank you so much. We want to thank each and every single one of you for your comments and contribution to tonight's show. Most importantly, please remember to like, subscribe, and to share. And also, please, if you think that you would like to, you have the skills to, or you just wanna give it a try, let us know. Send myself or Tony a message, and we will have you and one other host this show for us on our 1-year anniversary on the 30th of March, ladies and gentlemen. It's an opportunity not to be missed. Please make sure that you put your name forward for it. We'll pick the names out of a hat randomly, and hopefully next week we'll have some names to let you know. If not, you may just get a little knock on the door from either myself or Tony saying, come on, it's your turn now, and what a week. Final words and thoughts, Tony?
Well, Mr. C, I mean, like I always say, in order to move forward, you must go backwards. We can't stay stuck in the same place. The answer to your future is in your past.
And remember, ladies and gentlemen, no matter who you think you are now, right here today, and your journey you've become, you can always take a little cloth and wipe it all over, start again with a new belief system, which is built on solid and standing on solid ground, I should say. He's been Tony. I've been Mr. C. Collectively, this has been What a Week. We'll catch you same place, same time, Tuesday, 7 p.m. right here on MediaNet Live TV. Take care. God bless.
Good night.
Right.